Okay, so boys and girls, I'm heading out here shortly. I'm going to be going to see some guys at Boxable, and it's in Las Vegas, and it's going to be hot, and it's going to be a lot of walking, and I am so glad that this time I've got my Ariat boots on. I love these things, and the jeans are great too. For those amongst us who don't like jeans with short zippers, you got a real good opportunity with these guys. They gave me a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to deny that. They gave me some boots and some jeans and whatnot, and I'm telling you, I'm sold now. I'm buying my own. I really like this stuff, but for those of you who have bad backs, I highly recommend that you think about buying these boots. Boots are great if you've got a sore back. They worked for me. My chiropractor says they're wonderful. And if you're going to buy boots, check out the Ariat boots. I think you'll really, really appreciate them. Thanks a lot. Now let's get to the video and we'll talk about Japan and why I'm making this extra little commercial for these guys. Ohayou gozaimasu, boys and girls. Today we are going to talk about our trip to Japan. And as you can see, Cory and I are in our happy coats. Mine is EV blue and his is Nebraska red. Oh, here, I thought it was like headline red or something like that. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about what happened in our 9 days in Japan. We traveled around, we talked to a lot of different folks. We got a chance to see a lot of different things. And actually, I threw Delta under the bus a while ago because of the food wasn't all that good. But I take it back on this trip. Actually, really what I liked the most was the fact that we got upgraded into, what do they call it?
Delta One.
Delta One, which is kind of like cabin class in other places where it's got a little door that shuts and you can lay flat to sleep. And I did get a lot of sleep. So that's the trip there and back again, all summed up. It was great. Thank you, Delta.
Yeah, but we really want to thank Roy Thorson from Ariso.
Right.
So he is the president of Ariso of America, and they make connectors. And they're the team that we partnered with to be at CES this year in 2022.
Right.
And he coordinated the entire trip. So really a huge thanks to Roy. He also is bilingual. He speaks Japanese.
Yes, he does.
And so the first few days we spent with him and their team. We got to meet the founder of Ariso, went to the headquarters. So Sandy, let's start with our first real day there. We landed in Yokohama.
Yep.
We're about 15 minutes from our hotel. We stayed at this amazing hotel called the Royal Park Hotel. Very tall, I think 70 stories tall.
Yeah.
We stayed on like the 56th or 60th floor, and it overlooked the bay of Yokohama. There was a nice ship there that we toured.
Not just nice. The only four-masted schooner or clipper ship I have ever seen. So Cory will start to gag here, but I personally love sailing, and I absolutely love to look at clipper ships. And that clipper ship was like nothing I ever saw before. It was built in Britain. Well, actually, it was built in Japan. Using British designs. And I'm telling you what, we went through that thing, and I was just beaming the whole damn time.
We got images of the entire thing.
Yeah.
I love the engine room. It had 2 inline 6 diesel engines.
Huge.
That were in service for like 50 or 60 years.
Yeah. It's amazing. It was
Incredible.
Absolutely amazing.
It was a training ship for cadets.
It was,
That's
yeah.
what it was. And when we got on it, I'm like, what's the purpose of this? And Sandy and I are like, does it carry grain? There's no cargo. It was just to teach, was it 100 or 200?
There was 100 plus people that were on the ship. Most of them were new trainees, but then you'd have the captains and officers and the trainers as well. But I thought I was just totally blown away by that ship. I really, it's a lot more luxurious than what you'd see in a normal clipper ship, because most of the areas where the crew and whatnot were sleeping and the cadets and whatnot, that would have been grain holds and things like that. But we saw no holds on that ship. It was strictly a training vessel.
On our real first day there, we visited the headquarters first.
Yes, we did. Yeah,
visited the headquarters.
Yeah.
And we met the founder. Go ahead, and you want to talk about meeting the founder?
We met Sato-san, and he doesn't speak much English, but he is very, very knowledgeable. He worked his way. His company was like this one. Basically, when I started Munro, I needed a job, so I started the company. He did exactly the same thing with Ariso. It's amazing. This guy's story is just phenomenal. How he built it up from basically nothing. He put his heart and soul into it, and now they have. Actually, if you go back to one of our first videos, you'll see me playing with a circuit board, and I'm saying this is my favorite connector. I didn't at that time know that it was an Ariso connector, but it is my favorite connector because it always works. And he was telling me about the engineering talent that had to go into it and all the other stuff. I was very, very impressed. I think that for me, meeting Sato-san was that was my highlight of the whole trip.
And it wasn't a brief meeting. So we had the short meeting at their headquarters, and then we went to the factory.
Yes,
Sandy and I got a tour of the whole factory. Unfortunately, we don't have any footage of the factory. It's where they're manufacturing all of these pieces and components. But they had a plating line where they were doing the gold plating. They had a stamping line where they're stamping out the actual shapes of the connectors. And normally you think of stamping, you think of huge machines. Sandy, talk about how small
these things were like something you could put in your bedroom. You know, if you didn't want an alarm clock, maybe you could have one of these things turn on and stamp out a few connector leads. I was very, very impressed with the fact that these guys understand that they've got something that's unique and different, and they develop their own plastics. They manufacture all their own goods. They shoot their own plastic. It's really this is as vertically integrated for a system as you could get.
Yeah, and you may be asking, like, why are we so keenly interested in a connector supplier? Well, first, we reached out and made a contact, but this is an important technology to allow board-to-board connections. So moving forward with electrification, particularly with inverters and high voltage electronics, this serves a critical function, and I think the world leader. They own 56% of the market share for automotive board-to-board connectors.
Yeah, they're in certain areas though they're like almost 90% their boards, simply because nobody else can do the connector, the different board-to-board connectors that they can do. And the reason that I was very interested in is because the number one failure rate for any type of electrics or electronics is going to be connectors. Mm-hmm. And connectors are your worst enemies or your best friends for high quality. Same thing for fasteners. I usually say the same thing. You want to find out what failed when an engine blew up? It wasn't the cylinder head or the gasket. The bolt failed. So I want to know about fastening, and that means fastening for mechanical things like the vehicle itself, or fastening for the electronics, because those two critical areas, that's where you have to spend your money. You have to have the best you can get in order to make sure that things don't fall off if you're looking at mechanical fasteners, or that communication is never interrupted if you're looking at connectors.
Yeah, so after we spent some time at the plant, it ended up being about 4 o'clock. Then we made our way to dinner that night, and it was in Yokohama proper. Yeah. And at a private sushi table or private sushi restaurant, only room for 6 people. It was Sandy, myself, it was Roy-san, Sato-san, and Suzuki-san, who's the current president, I think CEO and president of Ariso.
I think that's his title,
Yes. Yeah. So it was the 6 of us. So I do have a photo of that after dinner. And man, we want to talk about one meal. This meal was out of this world. Sandy.
Unbelievable meal. It was just absolutely phenomenal. I've been in Japan a lot. I spent literally years over there in different trips, and I love Japan. I can't tell you how much I admire that country. The people are super duper friendly. The food is to die for. I love the food.
It's clean and orderly.
It's clean, orderly. I mean, they were talking about Tokyo, which has got, I think, the population of Michigan, and they were sad to say they had one murder. Holy mackerel! I mean, it's just absolutely amazing, and that's in a year. That's the kind of place that we should aspire to, as far as the organization and whatnot, and the focus on cleanliness and order and just being peaceful, being human beings for a change.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in there, and at the end of the dinner, or during the dinner, I found out that Sato and I had a lot more in common than just starting our companies. Mm-hmm. I found out that both of us had to work on farms as a kid. It sounded a lot worse than mine. His experience was a lot tougher because it was just after the Second World War. He's a little older than I am as well. So it was just after the Second World War, and he was basically supporting him and his family. Yeah, I don't remember how many there were, but more than just himself, trying to plant rice and also pick tobacco. So we were talking about what it's like to work on a tobacco farm. It was hilarious, and he was, every time I said something, he'd start laughing, and then he'd have it translated and said, I did exactly the same thing. And then he'd tell what his jobs were on that tobacco. It was really kind of cool to have that much coming together at that dinner.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's describe a little bit more of the food. So there were some things that were on the edge, on the very edge of what I've ever eaten.
Okay.
So let's talk about the first thing. It wasn't the first thing.
It wasn't the first thing. It was the first thing that got Cory going.
And what was funny is, it was my first time to Japan, and I love sushi, and I use chopsticks for decades. Like, I can use chopsticks, but it was a little, they're like, hey, can you use chopsticks? It's like, yes, I can use chopsticks. And then they brought out this thing. It looked like a small brain. It looked like a monkey brain, right? Wiggling, gray, with like the weird wiggly shape. And they're like, can you eat this? So I said, well, yeah, I can eat it. I didn't even know what it was. And apparently it was the sperm sac from a codfish.
Right.
And it was cold. And I didn't know if it was going to have the consistency of calamari or the consistency of chicken or what.
What was the consistency?
Slime paste?
Yes, exactly. So I've eaten pretty much everything that Japan has to offer. I absolutely refuse to eat uni, which is sea urchin. They whip it up right in its little shell. They just whack the top off and whip it up. That's not why I don't like it. I don't like the smell. I don't like the taste. But I have had the codfish sperm sac before, and I know that the best way to eat it is really quickly.
Yeah.
So first sake, then sake, and hey, you know what? You can only taste the sake, and it turns into just a bad memory.
It was just big enough where you don't want to cut it in half.
You can't.
Just
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
So that was one thing, and then a couple courses later, they brought out shrimp, and it was raw.
Yeah.
Raw shrimp. I don't eat raw shrimp, I'm like, okay. So they cut the back of the shrimp off. They do some stuff, put some soy sauce on it. I ate the back of the shrimp. The part that you normally eat. Okay, that wasn't bad. But then they took the head, and it was big. And they had these little bowls, these little brown bowls, and then they took all the brains and guts and everything out and scraped them out, all the connecting tissues, put it in this little bowl, and they whipped it up into like a slimy drink.
Like a paste.
And handed it to everybody.
Yeah.
And so here it's sitting there. I'm like, do I use this as a sauce? Do I put rice in it? And I just kind of out of the corner of my eye was watching what other people do, and they drank it. So down the gullet,
Away we go.
That wasn't as bad as the sperm sac from the codfish.
Yeah. So in Japan, when they do sushi, it has to be fresh. I mean, like, an hour or so before it was pulled out of the ocean or killed or whatever, and or sometimes alive. Now there's two versions of what we had. They gave you the version where you're eating the internals whipped up into a paste. That's one. The other one is they dip it into really hot peanut oil or something like that and fry it, and then you eat the whole thing. So you eat the shell.
Oh,
and
I would like that.
Actually, I love that. When we used to go to Sushi Cafe downtown, down in Troy, that was my all-time favorite for both the shrimp heads, and also for we would get a little mackerel. It's about this long. The fish was carved up. We ate the fillet and all that other stuff. Then they would take the skeleton and they deep fry that. Mm-hmm. And there's very few things that you can eat that have like pure calcium in it, and that was one of them. So for me, I love that sort of stuff. I like the shrimp heads.
Yeah. So that was a really good meal, and then
plus the cufflinks. I didn't wear mine.
At the end of the dinner, Sato-san gave us, Sandy and I, both gifts. They're cufflinks from Dunhill.
Dunhill, yeah.
Which is a London-based jewelry company. If you look this up, the cufflinks are really nice. I think they're silver.
Yeah.
And mine have a little leather insert. Sandy's has some sort of
a
stone.
Black stone, yeah. But I'm telling you, I only have one shirt left. That is French cuffs. Oh. I've ruined them all, so I'm going to have to go and get some more just because the cufflinks look so cool. I really like them. So we have to figure out something that we can give to Sato-san that shows
matches,
how grateful we are.
So it was very nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So fast forward to the next day, we went to a seat supplier,
right.
Tachi-S,
right.
Spelled Tachi-S, right? Yeah, Tachi-S. Went to their headquarters. It was in some suburb of Yokohama, Yokohama, suburb of Shin, Yokohama. We met the president and CEO there.
Right.
It was really, really great. We only met with him for 20 minutes, but then Sandy and I, well, mostly Sandy, spoke for about an hour and 15 minutes to their entire engineering team. Yeah. So not only do we show up, we walk into a room and it's just packed with their top engineers and whatnot. And we spoke about the automotive industry, where it was headed, a lot of the stuff that we say on the channel. Sandy gave a great overview of the Valley of Death. We won't go into detail of what we said there. Then they asked questions. We had probably 5-6 questions. After that, we went and toured their innovation center, and they showed us a lot of their innovation with their stitching, the way they do the seat cloth, the seat structure, some of the features.
Well, they got two very lightweight, comfortable, really comfortable car seat, front seats for their cars. I spent most of my time oogling over that. They're not as well known as some of the big, giant names. I quite frankly have never seen one of their seats before in any of the cars that I've taken to pieces. But they do have some innovation, and that's what happens when you've got smaller companies. If they hear that there's somebody wants something specific, they've got the agility to kind of crank and turn out something new and different. So I was very happy that we got a chance to see that and talk to them a little bit about next generation seats and maybe some of the technology that would help them out.
So we have a lot of B-roll from that. Maybe we'll put some of that in as we're talking here. But we got to see everything that they had to offer. Seat supplier in Japan. Roy set that up. So Roy from Ariso.
Yeah, Roy used to work there.
Yeah. So that was really nice. Then they took us out to lunch to teppanyaki, and that was great. So Sandy, describe what teppanyaki is. It's
teppanyaki is like if you've ever been to one of the Kyoto steakhouse or Benihana. That's teppanyaki. It's on a big, large plate, It's grilled mostly beef and fish. It's a little different than what you'd have at a sushi bar. And when you go to Japan, there's none of the
Razzle-dazzle.
chopping up. There's the razzle dazzle is missing, but they have some of the most unique ways of cooking, and it's all extremely very, very delicious. But the show of flipping shrimp tails and in your glass, water glass, that's all missing. They don't make little cones out of onions and stuff like that. So, but the food was absolutely to die for.
And that was just lunch teppanyaki.
Yeah, it was lunch teppanyaki, which I've never had teppanyaki for lunch in Japan. Mostly they just go out for soba, like noodles or something like that. Ramen or soba or something like that.
Yeah, and then we also had teppanyaki at night. I'm kind of getting confused, either the night before or that night.
And it was the next,
Yeah, at a really nice restaurant, and we were taken out by Suzuki-san, Roy-san, and it was you and I.
Yeah.
It was four of us.
Just the four of us, yeah. And
that was in some special house
yeah,
that
really
was
special.
reconstructed. So that
well,
was
actually, it started out as 6 houses, 6 different ancient houses that were in the area. And what they did was they picked them up and they put them into a garden. So there are a lot of Japanese gardens where the castles or whatever were destroyed during the war or whatever. Anyways, so they took these 6 houses and plunked them together, matched them all up, and I'm telling you, that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
What a treat. And the food.
Yeah, the food was really good, and that's one where I have B-roll where Grace needs to find this for sure. It was your favorite, abalone.
Yeah, abalone, yeah.
And they were big.
Huge.
This
This is like what you used to get in California.
They're
You used to
this
get 'em-
big.
Yeah.
So I'd never seen one not cooked. I've always seen the cooked final product, which is good. It reminds me of like a slightly bigger version of a scallop. Did a little different
Well,
shape and texture.
Yeah.
But I saw the whole thing in the shell, and they had 4 or 6 of them, and I thought they weren't alive. They were alive. And so they had this huge, steaming hot, flat metal stainless steel surface. And then they had these leaves, and they started putting them down.
Banana leaves.
And banana leaves. And then they were going to wrap them in banana leaves and cover them in a salt tower to cook, cover them in some soy sauce or oil or whatever.
Both.
But right as they were laying there upside down, they started squirming back and forth faster and faster, and you could hear them like hiss.
Yeah.
And I'm like, poor little guys. They got covered in salt, and about 30 minutes later, the salt came down, and they were all cooked.
Yeah. And absolutely delicious.
They were really good, but
Yes.
I didn't want to be, here I am, we have all these amazing meals, and I'm sneaking my phone out to film because I know I need the footage for Munro Live, and I just got to do it. I don't want to be rude, but anyways, that was the only real interesting thing there. Everything else at the teppanyaki, it's all normal stuff you'd have. Cooked shrimp, good sashimi, cooked eel and rice, beef, to die for.
Yeah, the beef.
The Kobe beef. Oh my God, the marbling. It's more marbling than meat. It's like amazing.
Yeah. And everybody tells you, well, you want to have lean beef, which is kind of like, if it's really lean, it's kind of like eating the bottom of your shoe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the Japanese have figured out that if you want to have beef, if you're going to eat beef, why don't you make it taste good
and have a little bit. So instead of having 18 ounces of some porterhouse that's tough with some fat and some lean, have a couple ounces of some premium meat.
Yeah, that's what they have is premium meat. And the way they make Kobe beef, or the way they grow Kobe beef, is the cow never moves. They don't have fattening farms and things in between. The cow's brought in probably at around 120 pounds, and it leaves there probably 650 pounds, and it's mostly marble. And because the cows don't move, the cows get massaged, the cows get beer. I mean, this is
sign me up.
This is not like your typical slaughterhouse cow. These guys are pampered before they're turned into Kobe beef. And when you see it, you see pink it doesn't have red. It's not bright, deep red like that. It's a pink color, and then you see the marbling all over the place. And Kobe beef is you can't get it here. There's nobody, as far as I know,
Unless it's
nobody
flown
grows it.
into a high-end restaurant.
Yeah, but I can tell you one thing for sure: it'd be astronomically. I came from a farm, and I know a fair amount about what you do in fattening and whatnot to bring up a cow to that kind of level. It would cost a stinking fortune. No one would buy it, and then people would look at it and say, "Well, that doesn't look good," you know. But I'm telling you, over there, if you ever get to Japan, you have to go to a teppanyaki, and you have to try what real Kobe beef tastes like.
Yeah, so that was really good. Next day, went to Nagoya University and a conference. So the conference really wasn't that great. We really appreciate being taken to it. We thought it was going to be more EV focused. There were some tier 2 and 3 suppliers there for the EV industry. We did stop by the Mark Lines booth, which we'll talk about later. It was our last visit. So we spent about 2 hours at this show in Nagoya. Yeah. Which is where Toyota's at, right, Sandy?
That's correct, yeah. Actually, in Japan, they call it Toyota City. So we were trying to get in to see Toyota, but unfortunately, we couldn't make it because they were all on a Munro live call. I couldn't believe that we were doing in the back. We did a little something to show the people at Toyota what was going on here at Munro, but we couldn't get a contact to go and see what was going on at Toyota, so we missed out on that.
But one of the top universities in Japan is Nagoya University.
Yes,
from a technical perspective.
Automotive.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and we were able to interface for about 3 hours with their power electronics lab.
Yeah.
So really impressive lab where they had all the equipment to not only do testing, benchmarking. They did some teardown like we did. They had many inverters there. They also had the ability to build up circuit boards and do research and development. Really nice new facilities, like 4 or 5 stories, with a lot of their master students and doctorate students.
Yeah. Do you remember the name of the professor? That.
Yeah. Just let me think. Keep talking.
Keep talking. Well, anyway, the good thing about the university was these guys were actually trying to develop things that could be used in EVs down the road. So if we look at most of the times when we go to universities, what they're doing is they're trying to recreate what somebody else has already done. These guys were actually creating their own circuit boards. They had breadboards and whatnot, and they were testing the difference between carborundum or silicon carbide and carbide and a bunch of other different materials that I, quite frankly, never heard of before, but they saw the potential in some of these other easily, let me rephrase that, much more easily attained raw materials. So his name was
Masayoshi Yamamoto.
Yamamoto. I should have remembered that because Maverick, one of our former employees, Maverick Yamamoto, and a girlfriend.
Yeah, he gave us a great overview of what they did, but then Sandy and I a little bit, we gave probably like a 15, 20-minute speech to the students. And we let them know that they're at an amazing point in history because there's like a new renaissance in the automotive industry. And we pointed out the fact that, you know, for nearly 100 years, the automotive industry has been refining internal combustion engines, but now we're at the precipice of where we're switching to a brand new type of technology that still has decades and decades of refinement left to be discovered.
Right.
And we let them know that the inverters that they saw, they're all completely different. The IGBTs or MOSFETs that they're using, the circuit boards, the way they're laid out, the thermal systems are all different. And at some point, the best will prevail. And we gave them a nice little speech and said, hey, you got a nice spot right now in your career.
Right, and quite frankly, there was no lie there. I wish, this is the only time in my life I've ever wished I was younger. This is going to be the most exciting couple of decades coming up here when we watch, some old industry die. Unfortunately, if you're an engineer, maybe what you should do is start looking a little more at what you can bring to the electric motor industry. And I think that that transition is going to be painful for some, but for the young and for those that are working on EVs, I think it's just nothing but brilliant. So it wasn't hard to give a little speech to those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so that wrapped up I think our third, fourth day, and then our fifth day, we went to Kyoto for really sightseeing. You know,
Yeah,
that was
this
kind
was
of our
the
day off.
vacation. That was the vacation part. So I've been to Kyoto many, many times. I love Kyoto. It's my favorite city in Japan.
Great hotel we stayed.
Fabulous hotel. The hotel, the type of room that we had, I've forgotten the name in Japanese, but what it means is lizard room. And the reason for that is because, or not lizard room, eel room. And the reason for that is because it's long and skinny. And so you walk in and the bathroom is on your left hand, or my case.
Yeah, it was.
You walked into a traditional, like, front door of a Japanese house with a little garden and water. And the water is there because they didn't have air conditioning. But it was plenty hot in the olden days. So they'd have water over the top of the running water coming over the top of the front of the area, and that would, when you open the door, cool air would come in. Then you go inside and they had the best wooden tub ever. If my wife lets me design my own bathroom, I am going to put in a wooden tub. I love those things. They smell great when you fill them up. They're made out of usually either Japanese, not sycamore, what is it called? Two Japanese woods. Both of them are fragrant. Anyway, it's fabulous. And I got inside mine the first day that I saw it. I took a shower, jumped in that thing, and sat there for, I don't know, an hour. It's really relaxing. I love that tub. And then typical Japanese, I have pictures of the bathroom, actually. I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I can, did you get some too?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can have that in B-roll as well. And then the bed was very comfortable. It's low like what you'd normally expect in a Japanese area. And then they have a tatami room, which is a little room to sit and relax and enjoy the meditating. Did you look at the little book where it showed all of the? They had a little book that you could flip through.
I didn't open it.
Oh, it was loaded with all kinds of stuff about ancient Japan, and it was in English and Japanese.
So great hotel, and we were right next to a temple.
Yeah.
And so, once again, Roy, he scheduled a whole day tour with a tour guide named Ken, right?
Yep, Ken.
Ken
was amazing.
Yeah.
The guy was like an Indian rubber ball. He definitely outwalked me.
This was the day we walked 26,000 steps.
Yeah.
And I had went for a run in the morning. I ran 5 or 6 miles that morning. And then we ended up walking 25,000 steps in addition to that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll go through every single place we went, but we went to different types of temples, ancient ones that were rebuilt, ones with really good views. But here we are in the middle of Japan, walking through these orange, what do you call them?
They're gates. Yeah.
Gates. And somebody comes up behind Sandy. Hey, are you Sandy Munro? And I'm there too. And then he looks, sees Sandy and me, and says, I love what you guys do. Oh my God. What was his name? It was like not Aki, it was Ako. But I only have a picture of him walking away because I was actually taking pictures of the thing while he's there. So I'll show the back of him. If he's watching, he'll know, and maybe he can reach out in the comments. But he took a picture with Sandy.
Yeah.
And he was really grateful because he said, we made him really rich because he bought a bunch of Tesla stock.
Yeah, he bought Tesla stock based on the
Model Y.
The Model Y teardown. And actually, no, it was a Model 3 teardown, because when I got to the Model 3, when we got to the end of the Model 3, I said, okay, their closures are no good and their paint is crap, and you know, this is wrong and that's wrong. But man, they got the electronics to die for, and this is the stuff that nobody else has. When he heard that, he ran out and sunk everything he had into Tesla stock, and that's why during a weekday he could take the time off, and he was with a couple other ladies.
So here we are, 13 time zones off from where we live, in a cultural site, and a random person recognizes Sandy with a mask on, and no Munro stuff.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
We didn't wear
everybody.
Munro
Everybody, stuff. You'll see in the pictures, we don't have a mask on, but everybody else does. We only took the masks off for that. So this guy recognized me with a mask on, no Munro stuff. I had a white T-shirt that made me look even fatter than I normally am, and he comes up and he spotted me from behind. Yeah. So I was just totally blown away. Yeah, I would like to know what his name is. If you are watching, please. I thought it was
Iko
something.
Heike.
Anyway, if you're watching, please send us a little note via the Munro Live message board.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we had a whole day of cultural stuff. That was really, really good.
Hang on a second. Oh, we forgot something. We went to the Golden Pagoda, my absolutely favorite shrine anywhere. It looks like it's real gold. You got about 1,000 pictures. One in particular I hope we can put up where the sun is just peeking over the top of the pagoda.
Yeah, pick the right one.
That absolutely, that's my fondest memory from the first time that I went to Japan. We went to Kyoto, and it wasn't the best of days for me, but but when I saw that Golden Pagoda, I was stupefied. This time the sun was shining, the birds were singing. Like I say, I really do like Kyoto. It's my favorite city, and it was just absolutely brilliant. There was a lot more people there than normal. But
it was planned perfectly. Because we went there right as the sun was setting. Any later, it would have been dark. Any earlier, the sun would have been high. Yeah. I think Ken knew exactly what he was doing. But let's back up. Right before then, we went to the bamboo forest. Yeah. And we climbed essentially a mountain. And Sandy wasn't too thrilled because we were walking up a hill, up and up. Now, hopefully, you can find this footage and put it in there. But I could tell Sandy was getting a little... I don't know what the right word is. Sandy was being Sandy. So I started filming right as I got to the top. And as he was walking, I turned and I filmed Sandy's response right as he got to the top. So maybe you can insert that in right now. Yeah. Because he was less than thrilled.
We need to find some more steep hills to climb. It shows me just how out of shape I really am. Yeah. Oh, good. Now it's my turn to jump. I'll take it.
It was
so
really
here's
funny.
The deal. This is Ken telling us. Up here was where they made this gigantic castle, and blah blah blah, and on about this castle had this and the castle had that. And we went up this winding path, up and up and up into the stars. We walk around the corner, and and then I made that statement, but it got worse. Cory didn't catch this part. We walked around the corner, and here's this gigantic area. It looks like a desert.
Just grass.
Huge. No, not even grass. It was just gravel and weeds. And I said, is this where the castle used to be? And Ken said, yeah, I think it was. Whoa! I walked all the way up here to look at a patch of gravel. I thought I was going to faint, but instead I said some nasty things.
So Ken, Roy, and I have my running shoes on. I have my Hoka 1-1s, which I think are Japanese running shoes. And Roy had running shoes on. Ken had running shoes on. Sandy had his cowboy boots on, which are really good for his back. I've heard it a million times. But man, you put some miles on those things.
Actually, I did. And actually, I just got them back. I had to have them resold.
Just from Japan?
No, not just from Japan, but Japan did them in. because those rocks we were walking on, I could feel them when I'm stepping on. Hey, there's something wrong with my shoes. You could feel the rocks on the soles of my feet. When we got done, looked like somebody had taken bird shot to the bottom of my shoes. So I just got them back, and they're all better now.
Yeah. So I can't remember. So that night in Kyoto.
By the way, I have to say one thing. I brought the wrong shoes with me, the wrong boots with me. I should have. What I wanted to bring was my Ariat boots, because they are even more comfortable than the ones I got on from Brand X. But I'm telling you what, if I would have had the other ones on, I'm positive, because those Ariats are really super duper comfortable.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened. They got, because we had one thing we had to go to, Florida thing, and then I just had to change suitcases, and I forgot to take the Ariats out of the suitcase. I took to Florida and blah blah whatever. So I'm kind of like pissed off that I missed that. But
all right.
Anyway, thank you, Ariat.
So many meals. Let's not cover everything, but Roy took us out to one more really nice meal at the traditional place. It was like hundreds and hundreds, almost 1,000 years old, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like 800 years old. And
no, I think it was over 1,000 years old. I think it was like 880.
In Kyoto. I know that people watching are like, Jesus, we know you guys ate a lot of nice meals, but it was like, if you go to Japan, in the U.S., you don't get anything like that. It's like, well, go to Shake Shack or, you know, I don't know, get a steak at Longhorn or something. But here they have so many cultural delicacies.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Well, one of the cultural delicacies actually is this, my favorite. This is takoyaki. Translation is octopus balls, but not really. Okay, so takoyaki is basically octopus chopped up, and these balls are more like an omelet. It's like egg and stuff like that. And when I went to Japan before, they were everywhere. Now the Japanese youngsters do not care for these things because they're not sophisticated, so they go to McDonald's. I totally blown away on that. But anyway, we got a chance to
eat some takoyaki.
We went back to Tokyo, and then you guys went one direction, so I don't know.
One night you were so tired that you didn't want to go out. And
no, I went out with Sako-san.
We went separate ways.
Yeah, we went separate ways.
So let's wrap up our last few days. So our last few days, we left Kyoto and we went and stayed at Tokyo Station. Now we were staying at the actual historic Tokyo train station. 100 years old, built in the 30s, 20s.
20s, I think.
And it had been like completely restored, and the rooms were like, the ceilings were tall.
Everything
very nice.
It's got to be one of the best hotels.
And talk about convenient. You're staying in the train station. So like when you have to leave, you like go down into the train station. When you need to go somewhere, there's cabs outside. So convenient.
Yeah.
Not like here where you land at the airport, you have to drive an hour and you're staying at a Holiday Inn on the side of a strip mall. You know, this was really convenient. So that train station was really nice, and we're only a quarter mile away from the Imperial Palace, which I went and ran around 2 days. It's like 4 miles to leave the hotel and run around. And there's a huge moat around that. That was cool. But Sandy spent the first day with the CEO and founder of Marklines, which is a company that we partner with. So Marklines is a value-added reseller of our reports. They sell our reports that we create. So a lot of the teardowns you see, we create reports. They sell those to our Japanese clients.
Right.
So they're in that market. So if you're watching this from Japan and you want some of our reports, reach out to Marklines. And the founder, we had never been to Japan since we had formed the agreement in 2017. So that we went to their headquarters, and you gave a speech to 100 people.
Yeah.
We both talked to them.
Yeah, impromptu. There was no
plan.
There was no plan on that one. Cory said, if you're going to do that, turn on your cell phone. Turn on my cell phone. I'm about to pee my pants. I didn't expect, first off, how big they've gotten. They have the best report imaginable for the supply community, the automotive supply community all over the world. But when I went there the first time, they had maybe 30 or 40 people. This time,
100.
there was 100, easily 100, maybe even more, standing there. And then Sake-san says, "Oh, Sandy, why don't you give us a little speech on where you think everything's going?" And I'm going, sure. And then I went into automation mode. I have no idea what I had to say. We didn't record it. It was, I don't even know how long it
You spoke for 15 minutes there.
Yeah, it seemed like 15 years. I don't like it when I get surprised, but it turned out okay.
Of all people to give an impromptu speech, I think you're the most prepared. I mean,
Yeah.
come on, Sandy. It's
Whatever.
all you do all day long.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing right now.
Yes,
You know.
it pretty much is. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, the one thing that Sake-san did for me was he took me to the Takoyaki Museum, sponsored by
Jack Daniels.
Jack Daniels. So, I mean, how do you get any more American and Japanese than cheap bourbon and a cheap dinner?
Yeah.
And I love these things. So I was very, very grateful for that. I met Sake-san's wife, and we had a good time there. And then I had to go. I had to go back to the hotel. I had a little problem that I had to solve, and then they picked me up for dinner, and they took me to this fabulous spot. And I have some video that will pop in, and this was an unbelievable dinner. Again. It was sushi. It was yakitori, which is barbecue chicken mostly, and teppanyaki. It had everything, and it just kept coming and coming. It was absolutely brilliant. I couldn't thank them enough. Apparently, this is the spot where, when George Bush was in Japan, or when George Bush Sr. went to Japan, this is the place that he went for dinner. He loved this place. It's not a fancy spot, but I thought it was interesting. When you walked in the door, there was a little sign in it that says, "Our waitstaff does not wear a mask because it's bad for their health." And I looked at it, I started laughing, and then when I got in, I understood why. These people ran everywhere. They did not walk. I never saw any of the waiters or waitresses walking. They were running around continuously, and they only had reservations. If you didn't have a reservation, you were not going to get in, because they matched the staff to the number of people. And I'm telling you, the food was absolutely to die for. It was phenomenally good. But then we were finished, and all of a sudden, sitting on top of where we were, you start hearing these Japanese drums, and it was an amazing performance. So it's dinner and a show kind of a thing. Yeah. But you guys went somewhere else.
So Roy, I'd never been to Japan. So Roy took me to the busiest train station in all of Japan, actually in the world. 1 million visitors a day.
Wow.
Shinjuku. I can't say.
No. Shinjuku.
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 So we get there. Apparently it has 24 exits. Like, it was really complicated to even get out of the train station. Multiple commuter lines, regional lines, and then the Shinkansen lines. We get out and we walk to one side, and we're there early. We're there at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock, and he really wanted to show me these streets that are really these crooked alleys with these tiny bars, and each bar can only have 10 to maybe 12 people, and it's bar after bar after bar after bar.
Yeah.
So we just picked one and walked in, and there was a waiter right there, and we sat down, and they had really good Japanese whiskey. We sat down, we had a drink, they gave us some peanuts. Another local came in and sat down. We were there for, 45 minutes, and then we went to find dinner. So we went to find dinner, and it got really weird. There's a lot of people on the street trying to get you to come into these different establishments. We'll leave that to be, to the imagination. But we went to find this really good restaurant, where you get a little porcelain bowl with these coal logs that were really hot, and had this grate on it, and air flowing through. And then from the ceiling, they had these little ventilators that pulled the smoke out. And you get this. We order this tray of meat, and once again, the meat. So this would be like in the U.S., based on the demographics there, it would be like a Chili's. It was like not a fancy place, but the food was to die for. Yeah. Cow tongue, amazing. Tenderloin, sirloin. I don't know. Everything was so marbled. It was so good. And then you give you vegetables to fry too. Yeah. And we cooked that all up, and that took an hour and a half. And then we went to another bar afterwards. Had one more drink and went home. And I saw it, and I had no idea where we're going, but it was pretty. That was like the wild area of Japan. You've been there before, but
I've been there dozens of times. So when you go to Shinjuku, it's like it's divided in half. On one side, you've got all the lawyers, all of the politicians. That's the government houses there, all kinds of things on one side. I think that's the west side, and on the east side. It's wild. It's like
Vegas. Or
no. Vegas has nothing like this. This is like more like the red light district of what do you call
Amsterdam.
it? The Netherlands.
Well, I got a lot of B-roll, so we'll put some of that in.
Yeah. But that's the place you can get into trouble, and I'm so glad that Cory went down there. Yeah.
I had a Japanese-speaking guide, Roy.
Yeah, and that's good because you can get out of situations if you know how to speak the right language.
Yeah. So,
by the way, you forgot to mention your first time you ever had shabu shabu.
What's that? What was that?
When you were sitting on the floor cross-legged, that's the stuff where the meat came and you made soup.
Yeah, cross-legged, more like. Awkwardly at an angle. I am not flexible at all, not that our viewers care, so I cannot sit cross-legged. So I had to sit on my knees or on my side, but that was in Kyoto. You're going back.
No, it wasn't.
That was in Kyoto.
Oh yeah, it was in Kyoto, but you skipped it. So
I know. I said we're not going to cover all the meals. So before we started filming, I said, Sandy, we had so many good meals, we got to skip a few.
But you never had shabu shabu before, so it's important. I mean. The public wants to know. Needs to know.
Thin shaved beef cooked in a hot broth, very good.
Yeah,
really liked it.
With lots of vegetables.
Yeah. So now our last day, we ended up going to a museum. We met up with Azumi-san.
Yes.
And you got a couple nice gifts.
Yeah.
So run through that as quickly as possible.
So we went into the museum. Azumi-san's former job he was the director of JAXA. That's the Japanese version of NASA. And I met him when we were developing planes, and we were doing a lot of work with NASA. Anyway, he gave me this wonderful illustration, which he did himself. Now, this image here is something that I wasn't expecting, but I'm glad I got. And then he presented me with this. Now, this is really special. This is called a No mask, N-O-H mask. And Azumi-san carved this and painted it himself. And I am totally blown away. This is hanging on my wall right beside where I work. I'm really happy and grateful to Azumi-san for giving me this. He brought us to that museum, and in the museum, there are some of these no masks that are in glass cages and whatnot that are thousands of years old. And for him to make me this mask was just absolutely brilliant. I couldn't be happier. Azumi-san, if you're watching, thank you so much. Thank you. This is just, to me, this is a fabulous gift. I'll never be able to give him anything that comes anywhere close to this.
Yeah. And then our last night, we went out to dinner with Azumi-san, Sake-san, and a couple other individuals from Mark Lines.
Kakawa-san.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really nice. Yeah. That was at a really nice restaurant at the top of the building where Mark Lines is.
Yeah.
We had a private room.
Yep.
Very, very good.
Lots of sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then our last day, essentially we had just like the morning to kind of toddle around Tokyo before we flew home. So it was 9 days. It went really fast. It was really
Yeah.
well organized, very clean, friendly people.
Yeah.
We made lots of business contacts. And
So there
Sandy,
you go.
do you have anything
Yeah.
else to wrap up?
I'd just like to thank all the Japanese that we bumped into and whatnot. You'll see pictures maybe where we asked two ladies in traditional garb to take a picture with them. Everybody was very, very polite, easy to get along with. We got our happy coats. I mean, so we're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't get better.
And a little bit of an announcement. We will be at CES this year. It's in early January. If you're going to be at CES representing your company or just in the area, we have a hospitality suite at the Palazzo this year. We're going to have several events. So if you're interested and you're important enough, reach out. We'd be happy to consider hosting you either at our booth. We will be at the Ariso booth.
What's the Ariso Munro booth?
It's an Ariso Munro booth, but when you look on the brochure, our name isn't on it. So we'll be in the Ariso booth, but we have half of the booth for ourselves. We're going to have multiple live events. We have a 10-foot video board.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a bunch of live stuff. Our whole Munro Live crew is going to be there, and we're going to have 8 other individuals from Munro & Associates. So keep that in mind. CES in January. We're going to start to reiterate that over the next month and a half, but we'd really love to see you there. And Sandy will be there. I'll be there for, I think, the whole 5 days. So really looking forward to that.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that should be a wrap. Thanks so much for watching. If you got all the way to the end and they don't cut anything, then I really thank you for watching. But I will tell you, Japan has opened up its doors. They're encouraging tourism, and I highly recommend if you want to try something exotic where you know you're not going to get into any sort of a situation, Japan would be high on my list. I would highly recommend it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
So with that, thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned. There'll be more to come.